So this lesson is dedicated to what I call leap theory. And leap theory is the basic set of awarenesses that I use to build the tools for scale patterns. And scale patterns are exemplified in the music of Bach, in my mind anyway. And I'd like to play for us the melody that I know bit me concerning the scale pattern. It's Bach's Violin Concerto in A minor. As you can see, a scale pattern is exactly that, a pattern concerning a scale. And there was a moment for me, a hard rebuke moment that I didn't like at the time, but I was playing this music and I showed my buddy one of these recordings, and it was just me meandering over the changes and airing out the toolkit, but at the toolkit at that time anyway. And he says, "Man, it sounds good. It's Noodly." And I didn't like that. I wasn't upset with him, but I listened and I was like, man, it is indeed Noodly. It's the opposite of the intentionality that I would hear from Bach's parts and his lines. And so that really put me on this goal to be able to produce lines that sound very intentional. If that's what I'm after, and oftentimes it is, I believe. So this is what this is about. It's about a couple of basic things. First, I'm considering in this video only common time. And I'm considering units of 8, like 8 eighth notes in a measure. And I am descending in the scale, merely. So for this example, throughout this video, I'm going to be in D major. So I'm descending always descending. Except for when we have leaps, and leaps of various distances. So the thing I want to notice, and it's a quite obvious noticing, but let's notice this together, is that when you have an octave jump, you wind up right back where you are. An octave jump in any capacity at any time. So if I play a D major scale, and I jump an octave in the first interval, and I fall, I want you to notice that we get right back to where we started. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. We're right back where we were. And it doesn't matter when you do the octave jump, ever. So if I did the octave jump here, I'm right back. Or it doesn't matter when you do it. It doesn't even matter that it's an octave jump, as long as it's a series of jumps that sum to 8. Let's look at a 5 and a 3. 5 plus 3. So if I start with D, and I jump up a 5th, and I fall, and then I jump up a 3rd, then I fall. Here I am. Right back. And it does not matter when these happen. I could start with the 3rd. There's the 3rd, falling. There's the 5th, falling. I could go falling down the scale, 5th, and then immediately a 3rd. That would be a 5 and a 3. You could also get there with a 6 and a 2. Imagine I started my scale and went, I'll go up an octave to illustrate this. Maybe I do this. 6th, fall, a 2nd. Or maybe I do the same thing. And then go up a 2nd. So any combination to get you to an 8 will lead you right back where you went. Now, why is it so important to know that you can land on your starting spot? Well, I would say because that's a reference for me, at least in my mind. So if I know if I have a sum of 8 per measure, I'm back where I was. So if I have a sum of 7, that means that I have a starting place 1 scale degree underneath where I was. So let's say this initial one that I did with a 5th. So 5th, 3rd, back to the starting spot. So if I don't get 5 plus 3, but I'd rather get 5 plus 2. And instead of going a 3rd, I'll jump up a 2nd here. Now I'm a scale degree under where I was. And so therefore, you can purposefully wind up on a scale degree lower by getting a sum of 7. And consequently, the same is true about getting a sum of 9. Meaning that if you do that, you get a landing place of the next scale degree, an ascending scale degree. So maybe a good way to get a 9 is a 6 and a 3. You can get there however you want. I'm just trying to give us some simple offerings to get us going. So if I go a 6th, now a 3rd, you see my starting place on the next downbeat is the scale degree higher. And so forth, and this would continue to go up. And this is the basic building block, and all the numbers go from here. So 8 gets you back, 7 has a scale degree underneath, 6 is a 3rd underneath, and so forth. And so that's the way that I do it in my mind, at least in the practicality sense of paving the roads. I do not wish to play music with intense mathematical calculations happening in my mind. But I've discovered that to pave the roads, that's the types of thoughts that I've had to generate scale sequence material or scale patterns, as we've been discussing. So I would note here that I am not attempting to teach you what Bach knew, because that's clearly unknowable to me. And I suspect for obvious reasons that Bach was dealing with inspiration and intellect far beyond what's common to me. So this is a system in which I've created like this mental software that helps me attempt to do what seems so effortlessly flowing out of him. So here we go. Let's build one. Since we know that 8 per measure gets you right back to where we start, 16 gets you right back where you start concerning 2 measures. And so I'm going to do a descending pattern where every one backs up my scale degree. So I'm going to start at D, and then C sharp, B, A, and so forth. I'm going to go right down the scale. And the way that I'm going to get there is by getting a sum of 15 every time. And a good way to get a sum of 15, at least starting out, is 3 5th jumps. So let's say I start on D, and I go up a 5th, falling, up a 5th, falling, up a 5th, falling. So let me play that in time where we can hear that. New starting spot. New starting spot. And it can go like that. And there's a sequence, a scale pattern. And one of the things that I discovered when I looked into what Bach is doing is he often creates a pattern and then has just a little variation on it. And he'll toggle them, like pattern A with the variation. Pattern A with the variation. And so the way that I'm going to achieve that in this sense is, rather than getting 3 groups of 5, I'm going to leave my first 2 5s regular, but my third 5, I'm going to get a jump of 2 and a jump of 3. So on that initial one beginning on D, 5th, 5th, and instead of jumping up a 5th right here, I'm going to go up a 2nd, then fall down, and then go up a 3rd. So my sequence would be this point, all of the visual aids that I've supplemented this information with on the screen have been in the nature of what to play, showing the contour with a graph paper, not necessarily how to play it. But now that we do this example, I'm also going to add the fretboard diagram and show you how I'm achieving these things with the sixlets. If the sixlet is unfamiliar to you, please go look at that video concerning the shapos and the diatonic scales and how they relate, and that will orient you in that capacity. But you'll see that I also include in each shape one note on the next string, because we'll need that in the variation where we grab 3/5. We do travel that high up the scale. Hopefully you see what I mean. I'm going to toggle these things and play them down the fretboard. I'll start with that big variation 2. Scale patterns, a mechanism of building them. So we branch out from here. If you're interested in this topic, we'll do more. I'm going to be developing some examples from what I call the leap theory that helps me design scale patterns on the fly. Thank you. I hope this helps you.